Okay, we're ready to begin.
Okay, hey everybody, welcome to today's lesson, and it's called Visualization Training and Situational Awareness. And glad to have Adam Pancho on, Master Instructor Adam Pancho on with us, and we're going to go ahead and dive in. Now, we are going to, at the end of this training, we'll have some open Q&As, and you can see on your screen there, you can press *2 to get into the queue. And so after we get through the end of this, we'll go to *2. Might need to mute somebody here. Hold on. Okay. That was you, Adam, but I unmuted you. So, yeah, at the end of the call, so hopefully everybody, you can see your screen. If not, it's not critical, but we do have slides as we're going through the lesson. So hopefully you can see the screen. And at the end of the lesson, we will open it up, and you can press *2 to get in the queue. So today's lesson, just to dive right in here, I want to go through a little bit about what's the objectives of today's training. You know, we kind of call it the path to mastery or being an expert. You hear all these terms all over the place. But really, we want to create a higher sense of awareness without always needing to think about it. And that's a key thing, and we're going to talk about the 4 stages of learning in a moment. But, you know, a lot of people will say, you know, some of the training we're going to talk about today and things that some people will say, well, I don't want to have to be enamored every second of my life when it comes to carrying a firearm or owning a firearm, or I don't want to have to be just, you know, overwhelmed by this all the time. And the point is, in the training that we're going to do, and especially in the next few slides when we get into what's important about how do you get to be a master, how do you get to that, is it's just a process you go through. We want to get you to a point where you don't have to think about it anymore. You become what we call unconsciously competent, which means you're very competent and you don't have to think about it. But it's a stage. It's 4 stages that we all go through as human beings. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's firearms, driving a car, flying an airplane, whatever it is it might be. To get to be a master or to be an expert in something, there are stages that we go through as human beings. So that's the kind of stuff that we're going to pull you through. So second thing is, you know, identify what might be missing in your training. So, you know, we talked about visualization training or situational awareness that Adam's going to also talk to. But in visualization training, it could also be called self-evaluation or self-realization, whatever it may be. And as we go through these, as we show you some slides and scenarios of restaurants and movie theaters, and you're sitting there thinking about how you would handle a situation, kind of what's also happening there is it's not just visualizing how you'd handle the situation. It's also identifying or evaluating for yourself what might be missing in your training. You know, what might you need to train more on based on your situation, where you live, what you do every day. So how do you close that gap? So I call it also self-evaluation, self-realization. So we'll talk about it as well. And then how to use daily situations to increase your firearms knowledge or to protect yourself. And that's kind of the stuff we're going to get into as well. So that's our objective for today that we're going to go through. And Adam's going to do most of it. But first thing I just want to cover is, again, what we said is there's 4 stages of learning that we try to pull you through. One is your unconscious incompetence, which means you don't know what you don't know. You know, of course, it's a dangerous area. I remember being there. Then you kind of get to the next level where it's like an aha. It's conscious incompetence. So now you know what you don't know. And this is a kind of a good area because it helps you, like we just talked about, self-evaluation, self-realization. You now at least have realized that there's certain things you have to learn in this world or in your firearms lifestyle. And then you kind of, as you train with us and as you get to the next level, you go through courses, you learn as much as you can from that, and you kind of then get into this conscious competence. So you know the stuff, but you still kind of have to think about it. You still have to be a little bit on guard and be aware of it. And then you get to that next level over your course of your training to be somewhere where Adam is, which I call master or mastery or unconscious competence. I mean, guys like Adam can react and don't even have to think about it, and they're effective. So that's typically, you know, how we try to pull you through in any kind of learning. So that's a little bit of background on kind of what today is about. And right here you can see a little bit more on the slide of, you know, you're in that danger zone. It's the unconscious incompetence, and you're low conscious, low competency. And as you train and you roll over into being that, you know, high competence and low consciousness. So that's the mastery area that we want to get you to. So we're going to start to go through that and talk about, so what is visualization training? And then also Adam's going to do most of the talking, talk about situational awareness. For myself, I can tell you visualization training is just the art of me being able to take advantage of daily situations I'm in when there's little gaps in activity or time to be able to take advantage if I'm sitting in a restaurant and then just visualize if an incident or something happened at that particular time and where I am in a particular restaurant or where am I sitting, how would I handle that? Because you don't always get to get the best seats that are protecting you or and your family. Sometimes you might be in the middle of the floor, whatever it may be, which we'll talk about. But now this gives you a chance that I finish my order and my family's still looking at the menu. I just take those few couple of minutes and do a little visualization training. How would I handle that situation? What's this table? If I flip this table, is it, cover versus concealment? Most tables aren't going to stop bullets. So now what are you going to do? And then there's that second level of consciousness you have to have because now you have your family with you versus being alone. So I just sit in there and take that time and visualize how I'd handle a situation. How do I get my family to safety first and foremost? Or if I'm in a movie theater, how would I handle that situation? And we're going to talk a little bit about that more, and I'm going to get into some details of how I do that as well as communication through some of this with my family and things. And that's kind of what visualization training is, and we're going to go into that more. So I'm going to turn it over to Adam, and he's going to kind of give you some background on this, and then we're going to start going through some of these slides and some very specific scenarios and get to hear from the master, Adam, and how he would handle situations. How does he think about situations? How does himself and his family and his wife, how do they handle these situations and things? And I'll pipe in here and there from time to time to do the same. So, again, welcome everybody, and I'm going to go ahead and now hand it over to you, Adam.
Oh, hey guys. Hey, thanks, Brian. Hey guys, happy everybody's joining us on the call tonight. Real happy here. I think we got a cool topic tonight. It's a different topic. It's certainly something I think most folks aren't thinking about. It's it's abstract from the normal, going to the firearms range or working on your hand-to-hand skills or things like that. This is a lot mental. So mental preparation, mental training, visualization training. Brian and I were talking before we actually jumped on the call tonight. We were talking a little bit about how we both got started with visualization training, and I got started with it. It was visualization planning more than anything. So, I remember back in the day, and still to this day, as recently as 4 days ago, I use visualization planning. And what I mean by that is I'm preparing for an operation, and I'm visualizing how I'm going to, take a door or take a corner or deal with a subject with his assumed posture. So, I've done that for almost as long as I can remember on the operational side. I'll give you, like, for an example, in my SWAT life, if we're dealing with a barricaded suspect or a hostage type of situation, we've obviously done our planning as far as floor plans and things like that. So pre-planning, I'm literally taking a moment, closing my eyes and thinking about, okay, I'm the first guy through. Typically, I'm the point guy. This is how I'm going to move. I'm aware of the floor plan. So, kind of visualization planning, which ties into visualization training. And the other perspective I'll give you is the competitive edge of it. I haven't done a ton of it, but I've certainly done some firearms competitions in my days. And, that's a visualization planning from that aspect is something I've certainly used, of seeing a stage of fire and going through it in my head and kind of thinking about what I'm going to do. And I think that ties right in with visualization training, which is there's definitely some similarities and some parallels with visualization planning. What Brian had up on the screen was a little picture of like a restaurant setting, and you've got chairs, chairs with the back to the wall, chairs with the back to to the door and the rest of the restaurant and things like that. As Brian was talking, that's one of the scenarios where he kind of takes that moment and thinks about the what ifs. And I think Brian prefaced it very well too. We can't walk around paranoid, and I hope you don't, and I don't want you to. I realize we do fall to our highest level of training in a stressful type of situation. So you have to have the hard skills training to back you up, but take those small opportunities you got. So you sit down at a crowded place. Sometimes you have a choice in a setting of a restaurant, something like that. Sometimes you have a choice of where the table's going to be. A lot of times you don't. It's a wait to be seated type of situation, and somebody's going to sit you down. But whether you're given a good hand, meaning you get to kind of pick your table and pick your chair specifically, or you're placed somewhere, you gotta, it is what it is. So you're gonna have to, or you should, I should say, think about what you're going to do if something goes wrong. And it's not like you're going to sit there at a dinner table, the entire time, press checking your pistol and, be thinking about how you're going to flip tables upside down and, do somersaults across the room, going through magazines. It's more of a, just a quick pause and think about, okay, there's the door, look around. Is there anybody you should be concerned with? Just think about, where your location is. Do you have access to your firearm? Where's your family, where your friends, things like that. So it's just taking those moments and visualizing a quick little scenario of, what if, what's the likely, scenario, likely course of action, bad course of action that a bad guy's going to take in the setting that you're in. With the case of going back to a restaurant, as far as, where you're going to sit, I'll tell you what me and my wife do, and me and Brian were talking about this earlier as well, is, my wife obviously packs a gun. Christy, she packs a gun for a living. And, we're on the same page as that, but typically we walk in somewhere and, I think she knows where I want to sit, but she'll typically kind of wait and see where I plan to sit, and then she'll sit down across from me typically. I don't, with the two of us, I guess it doesn't really matter who's where. I know where I want to be though. And I know, Brian, you were saying earlier, you guys have a plan, correct?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, a couple things to add to what you're saying. One is a little bit an offshoot, which is communication. But two is, like we said, is the more you do this, the more you train, it gets to the point now that I don't even think about when we walk into the restaurant that much. I mean, of course, I think about where am I going to end up and things like that, but I don't overthink it anymore because I've done so much of this training. And the point is, I want my back to the wall, or I want my back somewhere where I can see, the most of the restaurant or the front door or something like that. So, over the years, as I thought about those things in restaurants, now it's just automatic. Now it gets to that mastery stage we talked about, Adam, where I'm not overanalyzing and stuff. I'm not, being paranoid about it. It's just automatic. It's just like if you drive a car, you don't get in the car now and say, okay, wait a minute, I have to think to put it into reverse, and now I have to think about it. I got to put my foot on the gas pedal, and I'm going to push it just a little bit. That you just don't do that anymore, because after you've done it enough and you've thought through it enough, it just becomes automatic. And that's kind of what we're saying when we talk about, Adam, not being paranoid and how do you get to be, unconsciously competent. And then the second part of what you said, and is important in this scenario, in this restaurant scenario, is communicating with your family and having a plan with your family. And again, we've done enough communication where we don't talk about it all the time anymore when it comes to walking in a restaurant, because the family knows, because we have a plan. They always want me, because I'm usually the one carrying most of the time or all the time, that they know that I want my back to the wall. They know also that in that scenario, that if I say, hey guys, let me sit here, they specifically know why I'm saying that, so they don't question me in the restaurant in front of people or whatever. It's part of our plan as a family. And as a matter of fact, because we communicate and do this enough as a family, in some cases they might even suggest to me, you sure how you want to sit over here, Dad, so your back's to the wall? And it's like, yeah. So that's two parts to what I wanted to cover there, Adam. One is that communication is key. And why it's important, why did I say that, Adam, is because I do know a lot of my friends that don't even talk or about firearms with their family, their kids. They don't talk to, their spouse about firearms. They almost trying to keep it a secret and don't talk about it. And I personally just don't think that's a right way to do it. And matter of fact, we're the other end of the spectrum for safety reasons why we do communicate and talk. But then it's also because as a family, we want to have a plan, and any of the scenarios like are going to come up in the movie theater, and I'll leave it to there. We'll talk about that. But communication, I think, is a big part of it too. And they do the same kinds of visualization type scenarios that I do, so that we're all prepared as a family. So thanks for letting me pipe in there.
Yeah, totally agree. And, the communication is certainly important, like you said, but yeah, you're totally right. You get to the point where you're just kind of on autopilot. You know what you're going to do. You got the plan down. The folks that you live with and your loved ones, it's things that go without saying. They know what you're going to do, and that's the level we want to get to, ideally. where, with a simple scenario of where you're going to sit in a restaurant like we're looking at now, wherever you sit down and when you have that seat, they know where you want to sit, so you just do so. But, sometimes, like I said, you don't always have that choice, with a, wait to be seated type of option, and, you get placed right up front, right on the sidewalk if it's outside in a setting like we're looking at right now on the slide. That's not an ideal place to be, but yeah, that's a street. So, not a good place to, to want, sit purposely, but sometimes you don't have that option. And, are you going to cause a scene to sit someplace else or, go to the next restaurant because you can't sit there? Probably not. So sometimes you got to take the cards you've dealt with. However, that's why this visualization training and these visualization opportunities are so important. Because those are really the times where you got to think to yourself, well, I'm not in the best situation. These are not ideal circumstances, but it is what it is. I've got what I've got. So how am I going to make the best of this? So if something does go down, how am I going to react to it? And the way I think about it, guys, is likely courses of action. Back in my military days, it was, what is the enemy's most probable course of action? And those are the things I'm thinking about. What is, in a scenario like we're talking about in a restaurant, we keep on going back to that one, but in that scenario, what's the bad guy's most likely course of action in the town, the city I'm in, or in the setting I'm in? Is it strong arm robbery? Is it, a fight breaking out that, gets too close to me and my family? Is it, explosion we're worried about? So you take whatever, wherever you're at and what the crime rate is or what the scenario is or what the setting is for you, and think, what are the likely bad guy, course of action, or things that could go wrong, and how might you react to that? So it's just, you're visualizing your reaction. You're kind of stepping it out in your head. Okay, I'm going to do this. I need to secure my family. I need to get my gun out. I need to get us to safety. Or, maybe it's one of those opportunities where I feel that by getting involved, I'm going to make the situation better and not worse. And how am I going to do that? Where is my gun? Oh boy, but if I choose to do that, hey, tonight I only chose to carry my 5-shot revolver on my ankle. I got no spare ammo. I got no flashlight, something like that. Boy, that may change things a little bit. And that's another reason why visualization training is so important. You got to think about what you have on you at that time to react. If you're not equipped, maybe you're thinking about all these things you could do in a scenario, but then you look down and, like I said, you got your 5-shot revolver on your ankle and that's it. Well, your scenario is probably going to change because you're not going to be able to do a whole lot with that equipment except get yourself and your family to safety, and you're probably not going to want to get much more involved in that. So, it's an important tool, this visualization planning and visualization training, which is,
so based on this slide,
based
on this slide, Adam, I mean, what would be some of the reasons? Like an example is we have the arrow here pointing to kind of the back kind of corner against the wall, so to speak, and based on the things you just said, like, why is it you wouldn't want to sit right there on that table, right alongside the road, especially nowadays with, not even active shooters, but active, drive-bys and with trucks and things like that. I mean, this is an example of just kind of saying, well, I'm putting myself in not a good situation. It's a holiday weekend, 4th of July, a lot of people out and around. Why wouldn't I want to just sit right there on that outside table? Because seconds count. So you don't have a whole lot of seconds if somebody just decides to take a right turn into that crowd, So what would be some of your thoughts on why and where I would sit certain places here?
Yeah, sure. Some additional thoughts on that, though, with, we're talking specifically mostly tactics and tactical and thinking about our, visualization training, how, where we're going to sit and things like that from the standpoint of harm. But, I think you were starting to say going into it, Brian, was, we're also trying to, help ourselves and prevent ourselves from being involved in accidents or even being involved in something that's potentially embarrassing. I think back to the days when I was protecting people for a living and teaching protective service operations. And, we're not only trying to protect the party from harm, but we're trying to protect them from accidents and embarrassment and things like that. So if you take the scenario we're looking at where there's, seats that are right on the street, obviously from just a distracted driver standpoint, let alone somebody trying to mow down a bunch of people in the vehicle, which unfortunately is very prevalent these days, how about somebody on their cell phone and, they twist that wheel and they take out 15 of these cables, or they're driving drones or something like that. And then we have the actual, a terrorist type attack where they're trying to mow cables and chairs down. So, or just people, let's say we're looking at a scenario and it's down in, on the strip in Vegas or someplace like that where, some
Hey
Adam,
we're losing you a little bit. Oh. We're losing your audio a little bit.
Oh, hang on, I'll try something else. All right, how's that? Can you hear me okay?
Oh, that's beautiful. Sorry about that. Didn't want to interrupt you, but go ahead.
All right, no problem. So, from the standpoint of what we're looking at with these, backs of chairs on a road, we got to be mindful that, this could be one of those scenarios where we just got this could be on a strip somewhere that's popular, and we got people walking around that maybe they're drunk and obnoxious, and they're going to push our table and, try to start a fight with us and our family, or maybe you got your wife with you or your daughter, and they're kind of giving the googly eyes there and want to be obnoxious. So it's not just the harm or threat aspect we're thinking about with this visualization planning and training. It's, just setting ourselves up so we're not setting ourselves up for failure. We're going to protect ourselves from accidents, from actual harm, and, an embarrassing type of scenario. So specifically with this one, or that one back there, Brian, I think we want to be away from that road and back in a place that's going to give us immediate access to exits and things like that, where we can see what's going on, and we're obviously not right there in harm's way. So I like the next one you just brought up there of, the movie theater. Christy and I just went to the movies, I think about a week or so ago. And, those are situations, there's been obviously some current events over the past couple of years of some tragedies in movie type of theaters or movie theaters. And, those are examples of a whole lot of people in a confined space, and you don't have a whole lot of options. So what are we thinking about in a scenario like this is, where are those exits? Typically in a movie theater, we have exits to the front left and the front right, or at least one of those sides, and typically back behind us to the right and back behind us to the left. So most movie theaters these days, and maybe it's fire code, I don't know, you'll have an exit to your front left, front right, back left, and back right. So where do we not want to be? Well, we probably don't want to be smack dab in the middle. Ideally we're, at an end or a corner where we can easily get out and react, and maybe even think about, somewhat, not so far up front where we can't see everything going on that's behind us. I'll put it back in the perspective of when I used to teach protective service operations. If I'm trying to protect one individual or a group of individuals, I don't stand in front of them when they're walking and walk in front of them. I'm behind them. That way I can see them, so I can see my asset, which is them, and I can see any threats that are coming towards them. And also I'm situationally aware of what's going on behind me. But I like to be able to see the majority of the room. So when we think about this movie theater scenario, I want to be seated in a place where I can see the majority of the room and also be close to the exit. But let's go back to something I think, Brian, you brought up right from the get-go. We're not trying to put this paranoia mindset out there. It's just a simple preparedness, So we're walking in a place, we're prepared, we're thinking about where we're going to sit and make sense, and then enjoy the damn movie, and maybe as the previews are going along and one doesn't look interesting, take that moment, do a little visualization, and think about, okay, where's my gun? Where's my flashlight? Because it's a dark movie theater. That's a key piece of equipment. Where's my family sitting, and which exit is closest, and what am I going to do if, the worst case scenario goes down, if somebody walks in here and starts shooting. So we're thinking about it from that perspective. What are you doing in the movie theater, Brian? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I mean, a couple of things, but one, based on what you just said, is, usually what I'm thinking is we're just sitting there waiting for the movie to go, and I just spend 2 minutes and I think through, like, okay, my daughter's here, my wife's here. If somebody walked in that exit right now and started as an active shooter, what would we do? And of course, the first thing I would do is protect my family. If somebody walked in and immediately started shooting, it's not like I can run to the exit. So I think through, I look at the chairs, I say, well, these got some steel backs, the bottom of them have steel frames. There's a little bit of cover there. Of course, there's concealment, but at least there's some cover. So I'd get my family to the ground as fast as I can, and we'd have to then be able to give ourselves a few seconds to be able to think about how we're going to react from that standpoint. Where is the person shooting from? Which way can we go? Where are the exits? So I think through kind of those few scenarios and things. And then I know that my family does the same, because in this scenario, if we're going to a movie theater as a family, my daughter knows that when we're going to a theater, she doesn't like to carry in the theater and have it on her waist, and it's hard for her to sit in there stuff. So I'll usually have a secondary gun on my ankle, just like you do. And it's not because I'm worried about reloading or I don't have enough bullets. It's because in this scenario, there's a perfect time where we know as a family, if we did have to hit the deck, I would immediately grab my secondary gun, give it to my daughter. Now there's two of us that are armed. So in our family, that's what works for us. You know, everybody has to do their own planning and their own education on it, but that's what we would do. And we do exactly what you said. We don't sit right in front of the exit in case somebody comes through that exit. We try to get up a little bit or towards the side a little bit, and just, you know, so that if something did happen, we have a little bit of cover and certainly some concealment, because I don't want to be the first one they see when they walk through a door or something. So that's the visualization training, and that's how I kind of plan, just like you're saying, when we're sitting there. And again, I'm not enamored with it. It's just I spend a minute or two while the things come up, and sometimes we actually have a conversation with each other. Hey, guys, what would we do right now if, like I say to my daughter, you know, what do you think you'd do right now if somebody comes in? And we actually talk through it as a family sometimes. Sometimes it's fun. It's good conversation. But bottom line is it's helping us to get to be more prepared.
Yep. And like, let's take this movie theater scenario. So you mentioned active shooter. Let's say that does happen. Where's everybody going to go? Well, everybody is going to run towards those exits, and there's going to be a massive choke point at the 3 or 4 exits that are right there of people trying to push themselves out. And that is most likely where the gunfire is going to be directed from bad guy, you know, these just piles of people. You know, so what is bad guy not expecting? Well, bad guy is not expecting someone to react to them and counter their ambush, you know. So, you know, in some cases, you know, your best course of action to protect your family may be engaging. You know, so that's, you know, in most cases, I would say, you know, our best course of action if we're trying to protect our family or loved ones is to try to get them out of there as quickly and as safely as possible. But in some cases, like what I just mentioned, your best course of action to protect your family may be to actively engage the shooter. You know, just you kind of think about that. And I think that, you know, I've said this to people before, and it kind of catches them off guard. But, boy, you know, my priority should be my family. Well, yeah, but if you're piled up at the door like Cordwood, with the rest of the folks there, that's where the gunfire is going to go. That's why we stay out of areas like choke points and fatal funnels and things like that, because they're easy areas to direct bullets at because they usually contain a lot of people. You know, so bad guys not expecting that reaction. So visualize how you're going to deal with something like that. How would you engage? You know, how are you going to move towards that contact to deal with it? You know, and, you know, I would say definitely important is, are you equipped to do that? Do you have your 5-shot wheel gun, or you got your Glock 19 with a spare mag? You know, so, you know, that's going to make a big difference in a scenario like that.
So let me add to what you just said, Adam, because you just hit an important thing that I call for my own self-evaluation in these scenarios like you just talked about. Because we talk about, you know, if you do have to hit the deck and now you're on your knees and you're trying to peek through the seats, and, you know, you're peeking around a barrier or something like that to be able to engage if you have to because you don't have anywhere to go or whatever the scenario would be, like you just mentioned. I do my own self-evaluation. I say, have I trained for that? Have I gotten on my knees on a range? Have I gotten behind a barrier or a concealment and tried to be able to fire? And in some cases might need to be one hand or through a small spot or something like that. So that it gives me the opportunity when I do this visualization, it gives me the opportunity to identify gaps in my training. And I think that's a key sentence that everybody should hear, to be able to self-evaluate, identify gaps in your own training so that you can go ahead and train for that. And again, everybody's different. Everybody lives in different areas. If you don't ever go to the movies, it might not be certain things you have to do. But for me, it just helps me identify those pieces I need to train. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it totally does. And I like what you're saying about visualizing those gaps in your training. Yeah, totally. You know, so, you know, you got the shooting thing down, or, you know, you've got the equipment, your tactics are feeling strong. But like you said, you know, boy, when was the last time I did shoot from an awkward position, you know, on the ground or roll over prone or a supine type of position? Have you practiced that recently? Have you practiced it ever? You know, have you just thought about it? Boy, those are certainly things that are going to come up. And, this visualization training and visualization planning, it also should develop an internal checklist. And I think that's where you said as well, Brian. It's giving me a little checklist of, boy, that's a hard skill I need to practice on the range. Or, boy, maybe I need to watch the E3 video on how to bail out of a vehicle in a lethal type of situation, because I've never done that. Not only do I need to watch a video, I need to go practice it. So those are extremely important things. One thing I want to hit on, specifically with active shooter, and that's certainly on the forefront of everybody's mind from a harmful event type of standpoint in these type of scenarios we're talking, and I'll go back to it a little bit, is these active shooters, let's call them what they are. They're cowards, and they are not expecting contact. And with most active shooter situations, I teach active shooter to law enforcement personnel, and if you look at studies, when these folks are engaged or they meet resistance, their behavior changes. And that's exactly what we want. We want their behavior to change. We want them to stop doing what they're doing, and that is killing. So typically when they are engaged back, they will stop that behavior. And usually one or two things happen. Either they give up or they, neutralize themselves. Either scenario is probably a win. And in some cases they try to run away. But the two I talked about there is they kill themselves or they give up, are the likely courses of action of an active shooter when they meet resistance. Now, if we are sheep, meaning we're not trying to bail towards the door and we're not trying to go towards a shooter, we're just sitting behind something, hoping and praying with our eyes closed that we're not going to get hurt. Well, that is not a good place to be, because those sheep will be hunted by that lone wolf to get those sheep. So just hiding with your eyes closed is not an option. So that's why this visualization training is so important, is to think about and have that pre-planned think about what we're going to do if something goes wrong. And then at that point, we just hope we take that course of action, and we will fall to our highest level of training at that point to deal with that. So it's important to visualize, to have those hard skills, that training, that actual hard training, and then have the visualization and situational awareness to prepare and deal with things. This is very important stuff, and it's easier to do than it sounds like. Just a little bit of visualization goes a long ways. It really does.
And I think to add to that, Adam, which is important, which is why we talk about this, is it's proven in learning for human beings and things, is the more that you go through scenarios and train, even in your mind, the better prepared you are to act in a situation. And the people that never, ever, ever think about that, or just get their CCW and do 1 4-hour training and roam around the streets, inevitably they are not going to be as effective as you really could be when your heart starts pumping and rounds start flying by your head. It's a very different scenario. And the simple fact, and this has been proven over and over by scientists, and we have 2 PhDs on our staff in e-learning science, and they've taught us over and over that the more you visualize and be able to run through scenarios in your head, the more effective you will absolutely be when the day comes you need it. And it just simply makes you more effective in a lot of other things as well, as a fact. But that is just a proven fact in science. So this is why this kind of stuff is really important.
Yeah, that so much so. I think about my good friend Max Michel, world champion shooter, the world champion speed shooter. And I've watched him shoot, and I've trained with him, and just an overall great dude. When you see him, getting ready for a competition, you can see what he's doing. I mean, there's intensity there. You can see his thoughts. Visualize now he's going to take a course. You can see his upper body kind of moving a little bit and twitching, thinking about how he's going to take corners and deal with the target array and things like that. And there's a direct correlation there with that, competitive or sport mindset to prepare for something like that, as there is with what we're talking about with, saving our life or being in a harmful type of situation. There's definitely a correlation there. So that visualization is very important. We've already thought about what we're going to do before we do it. We took that opportunity, we took that advantage, and we're going to do it. And hopefully that increases our chances of survival in the type of situation. So what we're looking at here, we're looking at an open streets type of setting. We've got buildings on each side. We've got a lot of people out there, shopping areas to the left and the right, people out there walking around, in a scenario like this, a busy street, a lot of people out walking around, another strip type of scenario, or maybe even a mall setting. We're thinking about where the exits are going to be. What is the most likely bad guy course of action in a scenario like this? Is it going to be, are we worried about an active shooter threatening something like this? Or are we worried about an emergency like a fire? Or worried about an explosion? How are we going to deal in a situation like this? Where are we going to walk? Should we be walking right up the center of a street or an alley or the mall, floor? Are we going right up the center? Are we going down the sides? Those are things to think about. I think there's actually some pros and cons to each one of those. Are you aware of where your exits are? What are you carrying in a scenario like this? So these are all things you should think about. So as you're holding hands, walking with your loved one, throughout the mall or down the street like we're looking at here on this slide, it's not like you're walking and you're constantly paranoid and thinking about all these what ifs. It's just a quick, okay, this is what I got on me. All right, I know where I am. I know where my car is parked. And I see some places I could go to that could give me, potential cover, if something were to go down in a situation like this. What are you thinking about when you're walking around down there in sunny Florida, Brian, in a situation like this?
Yeah, I mean, same kind of thing. I just kind of just a little aware. And again, the more you do this, the more, Adam, we get into this automatic. We maybe even someday start to get into the green, yellow, the colors, the orange. Your spidey senses goes up kind of thing. So the more I've done it, the more it kind of starts to become automatic, where I just might say, hey, guys, let's kind of walk over here to the left a little bit, and then we keep walking. And so, I look at the same things you talk about. And, another scenario that, as you were talking, that, because I travel a lot. I'm in airports all the time. And, another place that I actually do think about, it's my opportunity to sit here and think about a scenario and how would I handle it, is when I get to baggage claim. So I walk off the plane, I get down, and then I'm standing there at baggage claim. I got time. And I just think about, so right now if something happened in here, how would I handle it? And, a lot of times I'm like, well, geez, why am I standing right here in the open? Let me just kind of come over here a few feet and lean against this pillar that's sitting here while I'm waiting for the luggage to come out. And what I've done in my mind, because I'm kind of a science geek and things like that, operations type guy, I thought to myself is, okay, I just now eliminated 50% of a variable situation. So I don't have to worry about 360 degrees around me. Now I only have to worry about what's in front of me that I can see. And it makes me more comfortable. And what did I do? All I did is move over 3 or 4 feet. I'm not overanalyzing it to death. I just being a little safe. And what happens is over the years, I just automatically do that stuff now. I just automatically know. So that's like another scenario. So to really answer your question, sometimes I just kind of think about the whole overall situation and how can I not be exposed 360 degrees, and how can I have an egress or somewhere where there is cover or protection or something like that, or even concealment or something. So that's kind of the things that I'm usually thinking about.
Yeah, those are really good points. I say it's a great place to bring in the situational awareness aspect of it as well. Not only, you're thinking about all these things about, that where am I going to go and exits and things like that, but how about as you're walking through a scenario like that in a public place, making yourself a hard target. So from the situational awareness aspect of, do I look like a soft target? So when I'm walking down the street, with my wife, we're holding hands, or, just smiling, we're joking, we're oblivious to what's going on. She's on her phone, and, I'm thinking about, a stressful day I had at work or something like that. That's no good. So we need to make ourselves a hard target in those public type of settings. So we would mitigate a personal attack on somebody like a predator or a thief or somebody that's going to rob us or something like that, or abduction type of thing. If we're with our child and we're situational aware of where our children are in a public setting like that. So making yourself a hard target, making eye contact with people. You see somebody that looks shady. I'm not saying you're staring them down and trying to get that intimidation thing going, but let them know that you see them. You are aware that they are there. So you're walking down the road, street, and you see somebody that's a little shady, don't ignore them, be oblivious, and just start walking faster. Look their way, give a little nod with your head, and keep on walking, keep your head up, walk tall, and walk proud. And there is something to be said for that. These predators, these bad guys out there, these folks who are trying to abduct children, they're looking for people who are distracted, and they're looking for that split-second opportunity to take advantage of you. So if we make ourselves hard targets, we are situational aware in those public type of settings. Those are life-saving steps. That's not going to do anything to prevent an active shooter type of situation, but from the standpoint of, theft, burglary, abduction, kidnapping, things like that. Those things certainly help. Especially take a woman walking alone, in a bad part of town, and certainly could be a likely target for abduction or rape or something like that. So they need to be thinking about, keeping themselves a hard target, and things like that. So that situational awareness is going to be very important from that aspect.
Which takes us right into some of the stuff you get here, Adam, with like opposing doors and being situationally aware of the scenario.
Yeah, totally. So this is, a little take of one of our video training series on, tactics. And when I say tactics, I'm talking about the art of, working your hallways, your doors, your corners, simple tactics 101 type of stuff. How are we going to deal with something walking past? So what you got for the folks out there not seeing this, I'm looking down a pretty narrow hallway. It could be a school hallway or a business hallway, something like that. And we have opposing doors. We have two open doorways that are directly across from one another, so they're not staggered. So, if this could also be an alley. It could be, a T intersection in the alley that we're walking down. It really doesn't matter. It's the same tactic and principle. So, one, we're making ourselves a hard target, walking with our head up, and as we approach something like this, we're aware of both the angles that are coming up. Unfortunately, as human beings, we don't have the ability to look in two different directions at the same time. Our eyes are directly in front of us and not off to the sides. So we can't do that. So we need to kind of multitask and do two things as quickly as possible. So we're checking those corners. I'm not telling you to walk down the hallway next time you're visiting your kid's school and you're snapping corners. That's not what we're talking about here. But you're aware. If you're coming up on opposing doorways and one of the doors is closed, well, maybe you want to kind of err towards that side of the hallway. So as you're walking across an open unknown area or an open room or an open alleyway in a T intersection type of situation, you have that distance to react, and you're kind of pieing that corner as you walk across it. Again, don't get me wrong. We're not pieing, what I mean by pieing is we're not, taking little slivers of each corner and opening as we walk by it, but we are aware of it, and we're setting ourselves up for success. And we're trying to move in situations like that and that are advantageous and keeping ourselves situational aware, meaning keep ourselves a hard target. And what we're looking at here, again, a little take from our Tactics 101 series in a building that we used. So what we've got here is an example of what we typically call that fatal funnel. We talked about it in the movie theater situation. If something tragic goes down in like that movie theater situation, everybody's bailing for the exit. So you got folks just stacked up, and they are likely targets at that point. So that's one aspect where we want to stay away from those type of areas. And it's an attractive place for bullets, to go. So we're looking at a picture of me standing in a doorway, and what we have is a backlight situation. So I've got a lighted room or hallway or area behind me, and I'm standing in a doorway to an open room that's dark. So basically I'm silhouetted. So if, bad guys in there, they're going to clearly see me. So there's the standpoint of the lighting conditions why we wouldn't want to stand in some place like an open doorway, especially if we had those bad lighting conditions where the unknown area is dark and the area we came from is light. We are backlit, we're silhouetted, so we won't want to stand in a place like that. So we either need to, one, move through those areas quick or stay out of them, or create as much distance as possible in an area like that. So just generally speaking, if you find yourself in public, a doorway is not a place we want to stand. We talked about we want to be close enough to doorways or know where they are from the exit standpoint, but we certainly don't want to be in them. So that's not a good thing. So those are definitely things to consider. Something I do, me and Brian were talking about a week ago when we first got talking about the specifics we're going to talk about on this training call tonight, is something I brought up to Brian. I know he does it as well. Is take advantage of the small training opportunities. Here's the reality, guys. We know the deal. I've spent my life in the training industry, firearms. And I know that you're not going to take a class every other week. You're not going to go to the range as much as you probably should. So take advantage of the little things. So I think about my daily life. So I'm gearing up at the beginning of the day every morning, and when I come home, I take advantage of a small training opportunity. Meaning my gun is coming out of the holster as I'm walking towards the area where I secure my guns every night. My gun's coming out of the holster. I'm literally taking a corner. I'm getting that last presentation out. Obviously, the gun is loaded. I'm keeping it pointed in a safe direction. My finger's off the trigger. Don't get me wrong here. We're not pressing triggers or anything at that point. But take advantage of that draw. If you can get a draw in out of your holster every day or every other day, that's a win right there. That's a small training victory right there. Or at the beginning of the day when you're gearing up, you put your gun on, you snap that thing on. Break the dust out of off the sights of your gun in that holster and get a draw. And I'm saying do it safely. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. I'm not saying you necessarily have to unload your gun. You have a safe area to do that. Simply get your gun out and get a good presentation. Take a look at those sights. Remember what they look like. If you have a flashlight on a gun, are we checking that? So, take advantage of those small training opportunities. I said something about taking a corner. I literally will do it. Coming home at the end of the day, I'm walking down the hall to where I keep my gun. The gun comes out. I take that. I'm actually walking past an open doorway on my right. I wish you could see me right now, Brian. I'm literally doing movements as I'm talking to you on the phone. I realize you folks out there can't see it. I wish you could. So I'm taking that doorway, which happens to be a bathroom. I'm pieing across that door. Then I'm taking that last corner. I already got that draw out. Boom, there it is. I got some training in for that day. So if that day I really didn't do anything tactical, I was riding a desk all day, well, at the end of the day, I got to see the sights on my gun. I got to take a corner. Or at the beginning of the day, I got to get a good draw or two out from that holster. So one, it's a functionality thing. Is my equipment operational? Is it loaded? Am I press checking, things like that? And two, I'm taking advantage of those small training opportunities. And when I'm doing that, I'm visualizing. So this ties right into visualization training. As I'm taking that corner, securing my gun at the end of the day, I'm thinking to myself, I'm obviously in a situation where I have to have my gun out, and I'm taking that corner. I'm tying that corner correctly. I'm on my sights, and I, moving smooth but fast. Things like that. We're taking advantage of these small training opportunities. You're not going to have too many of them. We don't have a lot of time to actually practice these hard skills training. And I realize you got busy lives and more important things to do most of the time. You got to live life. That's the goal. But take advantage of small little training opportunities and visualize possible scenarios. And you just think about it. You increase your training time throughout the year 100 times. I mean, you think about that 30 seconds you spent doing that. Add that up over the course of a year. That's a lot. That's a training class or two that you didn't take that year that you should have. So that's kind of the way I see a lot of this visualization training and planning going into, Brian.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, in my early days, I've never gave what you just talked about the respect that it deserves. And I can tell you now, it's funny because it's kind of like when I was in boats and I piloted boats for a long time, and then I finally went to get my captain's license, and I walked out of the course to get my captain's license, and the first thing I said is, I can't believe I was driving a boat and I didn't know what I just learned today. And it's the same thing with firearms. My first 5 or 6 years, I started carrying almost 21. I never gave this kind of stuff the respect that it deserves, and nowadays it blows me away because it's not only becoming more efficient, like what you're talking about in that training, Adam, but there's also a second component that I really respect that helps you be smarter and better, and that is data that you acquire from it. And let me give you some examples, and it's so funny because you talked about drawing and things like that, especially with new equipment. You get new equipment, you should be doing it 10 times more than, you would normally do, this scenario you just talked about. But just last night, as I was telling you earlier today, Adam, for the past 5 months, I've been, carrying my P320 with the red dot on it. And I find it difficult for me to pick up on a red dot versus just, traditional iron sights. So I've been training more and more and more, just like you said, pulling the firearm out. I'm in a safe environment. Nobody's in my side of the house, and I'm coming up and trying to get on that red dot as fast as I can and see and then last night, bingo, the battery was out on my red dot. So there you go. So not only was I training, but you're checking equipment all the time, and just come to find out. So I actually have it right in front of me. It's a CR1632. So I just went on Amazon today and bought more, which I should have had. So the point is that you've got, you're checking your equipment and doing exactly what you're talking about, but then you're acquiring data. Because what did I learn? I now just also learned that carrying this red dot, the RX, every day gives me 3 months of battery life. So I just learned something there. What else did I learn? Because I'm not really proficient in drawing quickly and getting up on target, especially with a red dot and a new piece of equipment. So I had to factor that into now when I'm sitting in a restaurant, I'm sitting somewhere else, I have to say to myself, well, it takes me 3 seconds to get up on target versus maybe Adam getting up on 1.1 seconds. So I have to factor that into my lifestyle, my training, and my visualization now. So there's data that I acquire also that makes me better to in addition to what you're talking about. So, those are just some scenarios that just happened in the past few days with me and doing that kind of training.
That's what an awesome example that right there of with the red dot. And yeah, you're right. Red dot is one of those things. Certainly requires some training to find that dot effectively. Sounds like you're doing it, but the fact that your dot was dead. Things that take batteries, they sometimes die, and things that take bullets, they sometimes run out. That was an awesome learning point. And that's an excellent example of why we do things like, press checking and checking our equipment and things like that. I'll give you a quick little one. And I think Christy was with me when this happened. It was probably about a year ago, or I don't think I've mentioned it on a call yet before. I'm almost embarrassed to talk about it, but, one of my duty guns is a 357 SIG. It's a 226, a Chamberlain 357. And as you know me, I'm a big 9mm guy as well. I love the 357 as well. But, I press check my gun, and after I press check, I'm like, boy, something just looks strange. So I press check again. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And I cleared out my chamber, and there was a 9mm round chambered in my 357 gun. The magazine was full of 357 SIG, but there was a 9mm round in there. How that happened, I haven't the slightest idea. I gotta assume it was me who did it. I don't, unless a ghost did it. But how, obviously a mistake was made. The good thing is I know it would have fired. I would have had to cycle the slide after that. But that was one of those. Wow. How did that happen? I have a lot of different types of ammunition. Obviously, something got mixed up, and that happened with me, guys. I mean, I think I'm a fairly proficient guy, and I'm situation aware, and I'm checking my gear. If that can happen to me, something like that, it can certainly happen to you. So you're, always aware of those things and be aware of your gear, and that's why we check. If I didn't check, I could have been running around with a 9mm bullet in my 357 chamber for months. Who knows? And then I need it, and I got a one-shot wonder gun. Then I have to rack my gun. Now, if I got both hands, I'm good. But if I'm operating with one hand in an awkward situation, then I'm in a lot of trouble. So that's a bad day. So that was a great learning point for you, Brian, and I think that ties in with everything we've discussed here. So good stuff tonight. I really like talking about this subject. Brian and I were talking. I think we could both go on about it for hours, but we realize you don't have hours tonight. And again, I wish you could see my movements tonight. I had some really ninja movements going on here, but unfortunately you couldn't see them. So, so what do we got next, Brian?
All right, cool. Well, we are going to open up. This was supposed to be a lesson tonight, but we are going to go ahead and open it up to questions if anybody has any questions. We didn't let everybody know ahead of time. You could ask questions on today's training, so you might not, but we wanted to let you know that. And just a quick housekeeping thing, just let everybody know, it's a perfect example. Do some of this training over the next couple months, and then get with us in July. In July, Adam will be hosting a 3-day live training event for members only in New Hampshire, and you'll be getting a lot of details and information on that coming soon to your members only email. But, some of the stuff we talked about tonight we'll be doing on the range. So just a quick heads up for everybody. So if you do have a question, hit *2. Again, apologize everybody that we didn't tell you ahead of time, so you're probably not prepared, but we'll leave it open for just a second and see if anybody has any questions. And, appreciate the training, Adam, and looking forward to doing more of these for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Brian. You brought up some really good points tonight. And hopefully everybody out there, you got some good insight out of it, some information that'll help keep you safe, and just get you thinking. Visualization training is free too. I don't think we or anybody else charges for it. So that's a free training opportunity. So take advantage of it. It's like I've got friends that have said before, press checking your pistol. That's a free opportunity to get. So take advantage of those free little opportunities to help keep you safe.
Yep. All right, everybody. Appreciate you joining us for members only lesson, and we'll get this posted into the platform. And I hope everybody has a great night. And be well, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Stay safe, everyone.